So this is work that was sponsored by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It's still ongoing for the most part. The first slide, now, of course, you're talking about 3D printing and why we are doing it in the first place. And I think this plot gives a very strong motivation for us to do it. Now, this is productivity versus different years, and you can see construction has been losing productivity since the 60s, while all the other industry sectors have been increasing. And there was an analysis done by McKinsey where they showed that the root of this problem is the lack of embracing automation. Right? And so 3D printing is one way to put at least some of those automation. And there are many other automation things that we can do in construction, but this is one. Right? But now it is really a revolution. And of course, the question is really, is additive manufacturing ready for prime time? You know, there are many companies, I suppose, some of the companies are in this room, maybe not, I don't know. But first of all, I have concrete on quotes, right? And if you know, when you follow me, what I say, what I do, I say, if we want to have a revolution, we need to bring concrete. And we don't bring concrete, we bring mortar at best. For the presentation of my colleagues before that, they were all mortar. And there's no revolution in mortar. Okay? So we need to bring concrete. So that's the first concept. There's one concept we'll take away from my presentation, that's the concept. Second concept is, okay, we print it, they look beautiful, they are fantastic. But we are structural engineers, right? So we want to have a way to design those structures, right? Not just print them over and over and over until you get it right. We want to be able to design those structures. And design those structures means two things. Design the 3D printing process, because now it's not just cast, right? You have to actually design the 3D printing process and be able to calculate the load carrying capacity of these printed structures. Right? We need those two things. So what is the solution? Is a design, trial and error, large-scale testing. Many people are doing this, right? They'll try, and get it right, and then build big walls and test them. My argument is that we have been there already, and it doesn't work. It cannot work, right? You know, if the image that you would show here is Duomo di Milano, that my colleagues from Italy, they know. It began construction in 1386. It was completed in 1805. Why? Because they were trial and error, right? So they were building until it collapsed, and then started again with the larger column, right? That's a trial and error. Now, we have been doing a lot of progress since then, right? So we don't do that at the structural level, but what I do see in 3D printing is that we are still doing that at the structural level, okay? Because we don't have really method to predict those things. So what is my vision, I think, is that we need to do experiments. Of course, experiments are extremely important. But experiments need to be at a small scale. It needs to be in the lab. They don't need to be large scale. We need to measure rheological properties. We need to measure hardened properties. And this is the most important thing, I think, of additional work that people need to do, in my opinion, is really studying the setting of fluid to solid transition, right? Which is one of the most important things in 3D. Then we need the computations. We have big computers. You know, it seems to me strange that in this community we are still afraid of computers. We have big computers. We need to really have computational frameworks that do all the rest. Right? We don't need to test walls. We don't need to test large-scale beams, other than for validation, of course, of those models. And so, of course, we need validated models, we need certain quantification, we need good solvers, of course, we need artificial intelligence. We need a lot of, we can take advantage of a lot of those innovations in computer technology, cloud computing, quantum computing, GPU, all kinds of things that drive our cars. So if those things drive our cars, why cannot design our structures? Right? Okay. So what we have been doing is to try to have all those things in one computational framework and do that as more accurately as possibly we can. So this is one model that developed with my colleagues and my collaborators from the University Ohio University in China. So here is a very high fidelity model. We simulate aggregate pieces. Again, aggregate, this is concrete. Okay? So aggregate with the actual size distribution, particle size distribution, shape, and everything. The mortar, the fine mortar or cement paste, depending on the resolution, it's a fluid, the particles are rigid, that makes sense. We have fibers. Of course, fibers is important, but lots of things. We are doing, for this project, we are doing work on ultra high performance concrete, where you do have fibers. Right? You don't have coarse aggregate, but you do have fibers. And so we put all together. This is the aggregate rigid bodies with discrete element method, coupled with smooth particle hydrodynamics for the fluid, and mix them, vibrating them. So you do all the things that you actually do in the lab, and then you simulate, for example, in this case, elbows. Text. Okay, and the nice thing is that if you do this, it's very accurate. By the way, this was a GPU implementation, so not even that computation intensive. This simulation runs in like 4 or 5 hours, okay, which is absolutely acceptable. And the nice thing, and there's a paper, I forgot to mention, to put the reference here, but there's a paper where we analyzed, based on this type of simulation, how the flow aligns fibers. Right? That is, in 3D printing, if you have done ever a 3D printing with fibers, you will see all aligned in the direction of flow. Right? And here in these pictures, I'm going to, again, it's in the paper, but we are tracking the alignment of fibers in certain places. We are tracking how also the flow might break down agglomerates of fibers that we often have in these modules. Now, of course, this is high fidelity. You can do small things. What about if you want to do something that is a little bit more still accurate but approximated? So what you can do is get rid of the fluid. Right? So you can get rid of the SPH and have just DM, and then have some equivalent contact laws that somehow represent all the factor of the fluid in between. So we have developed this discrete French concrete model, including the fibers. In this case, the shape, the aggregates are not the real shape. It's just approximately spheres. We still have the real aggregate size distribution. Fluid mortar is not explicitly there, and we can simulate fibers explicitly. Again, in the interest of time, I just want to give you just a vignette of what we are doing. So I'm not to skip completely the description of the math. And go here, by the way, as far as the math is concerned, we are using, of course, Bingham model, nonlinear Bingham model, with Tixotropy, right? So first, Tixotropy is one important aspect. So those are all embedded in the constitutive equations. And here you see, of course, as you have a slump test, for example, how you move the fibers together with the material, and you can have some of those final fiber distributions. This is another simulation, an L box, same thing. Now, of course, here, and you might see there are some weird stuff that the fibers do here and here and here, and that's because of the resolution, right? If the fibers are too small compared to the size of the particles, then of course this doesn't work, because you don't have enough resolution for the contacts to develop. And those are some of the situations that you have here. But still, you can see some of the features that you would see in those simulations. One step further, if you don't want to have the fibers, or you just want to do DM, there is a lot of literature, and this is one paper from 1922. Okay, so it's not that the science is not there. So this is all papers where they studied how fibers flow if they are in a fluid, okay? And Jeffrey came up with this equation where if this P is the orientation of one fiber, it says, okay, this P dot is the orientation change in time, and this function of epsilon dot, which is the usual strain rate tensor, and omega, which is the anti-symmetric component, which is the curve of the velocity field. And then, of course, if you do that, then you don't need to put the fiber explicitly, you just do the flow. But of course, you need to have some equivalent rheological properties that account for the effect of the fibers. Okay? Similar things. Skip this. All right, now fluid to solid transition. These are the things that we are working on now. So now we really want to have in one single model, right, the transition from fluid to solid. By the way, it's a philosophical question of what's a fluid and what's a solid, okay? And we can entertain on that philosophical question in other sessions. But what we do here is that you have this discrete fresh concrete model, where when then the flow ends, the topology doesn't change. If the topology doesn't change, you can couple with this LDPM, this is the lattice discrete particle model. That is a model that we've been using for 20 years to simulate the hardening property of concrete. And you can make them to work together, right? And so say, as you transition, there is some portion of the material that is still fluid, some portion that is hardening, right? And so they're together until you just transition to a solid. Now, the nice thing is that those two models are compatible, in the sense they are completed on the same principle, which is simulating the coarse aggregate pieces in the material. Now, there are some details on when you have a DFC simulation, you need to reconstruct the surface. Okay, this is fine. The one thing that we're working on now is on the definition of a function which weights the two models at any given time, right? And that's what we call the setting function, right? And that setting function is a function of hydration delay, of course. It needs to be related to the chemistry and how hydration progresses in the material, okay? And, okay, I skip this. Now, setting. The setting is important. You know, at one past convention that was in the 3D printing committee, I asked people, okay, how do we measure setting, right? And of course, the answer is the VCAT. Well, fine, okay. That's very crude approximation of how to measure setting. There are many different ways, and we have explored many of those to measure setting. Eventually, we settled in combining ultrasonic pulse velocity with isothermal calorimetry, and that provides, when they put them together, so these are two examples of two data sets, one data set for UPV and one for calorimetry. The blue is the UPV, this one is calorimetry, and so that you can identify specific points in those curves that tells you exactly where the setting starts, so the open period actually ends, and when you can consider the final set. And so with this data here, which are things that you can do a very small sample in the lab, and it's a really robust way to identify initial set, final set. And then we end up with eventually transition to the solid. When I do the solid, we print the stuff, we scan them, we render them, and then we simulate them. Okay? And we simulate them with LDPM. By the way, I've seen a lot of finite element calculation of failure and fracture, which is very good. Okay? Now, if you do that, please do mesh sensitivity. Softening constitutive equation with finite element are mesh dependent. We know that for 30 years. So whenever you show some finite element calculation of fracture, please show me that once you reduce the mesh size, your response doesn't change. Otherwise. So, in conclusion, really to me the future of concrete printing hinges on, first of all, the adoption of performance-based design guidelines. It is a subcommittee at this convention that meets for the first time at 1 p.m. today. Be there, because the subcommittee starts to discuss some of those guidelines. If, God forbid, ACI will push specification-based guidelines, that's the end of the debate. Okay? That's the end of the debate. We need to advocate for performance-based design of 3D printing structure if you want to see any future. Second takeaway, you need models. Okay, so if there are, I mentioned this at the last convention, I keep mentioning every time I talk. If in the room there is anything from anyone from those companies or any 3D printing company, please invest in computations. You are doing beautiful stuff, you have a fantastic technology, but if you really want to make an impact, you have to invest in computation, digital twinning, you know, what Francesco mentioned earlier, and these type of things. This presentation, we just showed some initial step of this first of its kind multi-scale computational framework that simulates the entire thing, right? From the fresh material with the pixelography, and then the coupling that with the aggregation, the chemistry, the setting, the hardening, and then the hardening properties. That's what we need if we want to make an impact in construction. Thank you very much.